This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to a holiday edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Festive mood. Detroit Lions got off the schneid and they were able to get a victory over the Chicago Bears, I think calming everybody down. After the loss to the Bills, people were a little bit nervous about the Detroit Lions, and I think the Chicago Bears were the perfect football team to help remedy people's fears. Joining me as always, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Because the Lions, look, I thought that once Vegas set the line at 6.5, moved up to 7, most people felt like the Bears were laying down and the Lions were going to go into Soldier Field and kick their ass. And that's what happened. And it's great to see because in talking to friends, so many times the Lions were on the other side of that, where they were playing out the string, making a lot of mistakes, and the other team would come in and had aspirations. But this time, the Lions, you knew they were the better team. They played better, they executed better, and the Bears shot themselves in the foot so many times. It was such a great experience because the game was basically over by 2:15. An hour into the game, it was one of those deals where you had no doubt the Lions were going to end up winning and get their 13th win. With 2 weeks left in the season, did that kind of put you back on the bandwagon, calm you down a little bit? Or do you say, like a lot of people, like, man, yeah, you beat the Bears, you did what you're supposed to do, but in the end, we're all looking to see how this football team plays against the Vikings?
I think this game goes a long way with calming down the fan base. I think this game goes a long way with making me feel better with where they have to be and what they have to do to get there. If you look at this game and you look at how they played, this was a very Detroit Lions win. This is very much an identity win for this team. They go, offense is hitting on all cylinders. They're able to move the ball up and down the field. They want to be able to run the ball. They were able to run the ball against the Bears. They want to be able to use the run to set up those explosive passes downfield. Jamison Williams got a lot of touches, and those were set up downfield. They like to add some creative stuff on offense. You got to see that. We're going to talk about a little bit of trickery later on in the show. So they got to do what they like to do. They got to play the way they like to play, and I think that showed through. I think what also showed through is you have a bit of a patchwork defense, right? You've got a defense that you're trying to piece together, and you've got guys coming off the streets that are walking in, putting cleats on, and suiting up for you because you've taken so many injuries. I think last week I said it was 25 or 28. It's actually 22 guys on injured reserve. So you look at this game, most of those injuries are on your defense. You are now on to your third and fourth string defensive guys because the top of your roster has been so beat up. So you see what they do on defense. And whether the Bears laid down or whether the Bears didn't lay down or any of that, they're still professionals. Those are still football players that you're going out there, and these guys were making plays. They forced a couple of turnovers. I think the more important thing, and this is the one thing that I kind of took out of this defense that, like I said, is very much patchwork. It's just trying to plug guys in and making sure you have enough healthy bodies to field enough guys across from whatever offense you're going against. These guys all ran to the ball. These guys all circled to the ball. There were times where you weren't necessarily getting pressure on Caleb Williams, right? I don't think they ended up with a sack in this game. But you were able to, as he completed a pass or as they handed the ball off to DeAndre Swift, when those guys were getting stopped, there were multiple Lions jerseys around that pile, around that offensive player. So you have guys running to the football. That's going to make it much more difficult for offenses. It also puts it in other teams' minds. Almost I want to say, kind of not so much a litmus test, but it's kind of this mentality like we're not going to back down. We're going to go circle the ball. We're all going to show up. We're all going to play hard. And you got to see that in this game. I think that was probably the most important thing that I took out of this. Yes, the offense is going to be fine. Yes, it sucks that David Montgomery went down. What is this defense going to do? This defense went and it played a really good game against a decent enough offense. And maybe on paper, Chicago's offensive ranking isn't great, but what I've seen from these guys on the field did enough to kind of calm some of my nerves surrounding this defense. I got to see them run to the ball. I got to see them fly around. I got to see guys who, when you look on a roster sheet, you're like, who the hell is this guy? You got to see those guys make some plays. And again, they're making plays against other NFL guys. So take it. Take it all day. Take it every day of the week. What did you think of the job that the patchwork defense did? Because like I said, it helped calm some of the nerves. I don't think this is a great defense by any chance, right? Like, I don't think this is going into the Bills game. They had the number 2 ranked defense. I don't think this is that defense. I don't even think this is maybe a top 20 defense. I don't think it's a top 15 defense. You know, I think it's a defense that can help you get the job done until you get some of those other guys back on the field when the playoffs roll around. Did they do enough to kind of ease some of your attention and kind of make you feel a little bit better as we kind of get through this back half of the season and as we work our way towards the playoffs?
Yeah, it's number one question is that, okay, this defense, how are they going to gel with so many new pieces? But you look at it, Ifeatu Melifonwu really is an addition that, hey, even if you get him for a couple games late, I think that, you know what, that's not a bad addition. Somebody that's physical, that can blitz, that can be an outside linebacker as well, that can be versatile. So the number one thing for Ifeatu Melifonwu is if he can stay healthy, hey, maybe if you're not going to be back part of the Lions next year, maybe you audition and you have extra motivation for another NFL team. But I just thought that, look, forcing the turnovers is so key. The defense looks so different, and they play so different when the defense forces turnovers. And, look, there was an exchange issue with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. So you say, hey, you take advantage of a team and their weaknesses. So, yeah, I thought that, yeah, it's like you can't really blame Terrion Arnold because he's not a shutdown corner. He's not somebody yet that is going to lock down Keenan Allen. So you look at it, if we did a tail of the tape and you did, well, Keenan Allen versus Terrion Arnold, who has the edge? You're naturally going to give it more often than not to Keenan Allen. He made a play. I thought that Terrion took a calculated risk to jump a route, but that was just atrocious. And look, he made a play in the end zone. So look, I thought that one play that he made was real solid. He looked back, he had his hand up, and he knocked the football down. I like the fact that he stood over the receiver. But in the end, the biggest weakness in that game was the secondary. But here's the blessing, and this is what you and I have said, and this is what the expectation should be for this football team. Your offense, if you're going to secure the number 1 seed, your offense has to shoulder the load, and they got to dominate teams, and because they can do it. Like, literally, it's basically, like, are you really, I mean, it's a built-in excuse. Can we really hate on the defense that has, like, over 15 guys on IR from the defense? No. So, in the end, the idea is the defense just got to do enough, and you got to lean on Goff, St. Brown, Jamo, Laporta, and Gibbs. And guess what? Those five guys were completely awesome against the Bears. Literally, Laporta touchdown, Jamo deep, Amon-Ra possession when you needed him. Jahmyr Gibbs was awesome. So I think that, and as NFL teams should go these days, the league doesn't let you play defense for the most part. Hopefully Anzalone comes back. That helps. But if the offense plays like they did against the Bears, it will be hard-pressed for anybody to defeat this Detroit Lions football team. And that's why I'm confident. I think that in a couple weeks, the Lions are going to have the number 1 seed. I'm praying, that the Lions get the number 1 seed, because that would be great to not have to travel in the wintertime only for a potential Super Bowl run. And the scenarios are quite simple, because all you got to do is you hope that you cheer for the Packers and you hope they beat the Vikings and you beat the 49ers. Otherwise, if you lose to the 49ers, then or if you win and the Vikings win, then week 18 is the showdown of all showdowns. So the number 1 seed is right there. And you know what? Thanks to a report from Sports Illustrated, we now learned that the Commanders' call that they made to win the game was installed by none other than former Lions quarterback David Blau. What a crazy story to have happen, in that the Eagles were playing well, but in the end, the Commanders come back and are able to defeat the Eagles, that helps tremendously where it puts it where right now you can have the number 1 seed, because if you defeat the 49ers and the Packers beat the Vikings, Lions lock it up, which would be so good because then Dan Campbell has all the cards in play to potentially rest some guys week 18. Do you think it's realistic now? Did the Eagles losing really open the door to give you more hope about the number 1 seed?
I think so. Like, Eagles end up losing, and then you look at the Minnesota game. Minnesota needed to come up clutch at the very, very end. Minnesota might be, I don't want to say living on life support right now, but Minnesota has had to use a couple miracle plays to get a couple of wins. And look, those things are going to happen when you're having a pretty historic season like the Minnesota Vikings are having right now. But I think now what this sets the table for is it allows Detroit to go into the mindset of 1 game, 1 week, get this win, get out, and let's move on. And just, they're now into playoff mode. You know, taking care of business with Chicago was just something that you had to check off the list, right? Now you hunker down and basically you got a mini 2-game playoff before the playoffs actually start, and it's just win and continue. That's it. Just win in advance, win in advance, win in advance. I think getting the number 1 seed is so vital for the success of this team if they have a realistic shot at getting to the Super Bowl. If your eyes are on making the Super Bowl and possibly winning the Super Bowl, this team needs that number 1 seed. And the reason for it really, truly just comes down to rest. You need to be able to rest these guys. You need to be able to give these guys a little bit of time off. On top of that, you then get to play with home field advantage. We know that Ford Field can be an absolute pit when the playoffs roll around. We know it's an absolute pit when the regular season's going on, but it gets amplified that much more during the playoffs. So I think that this team has to, if you have any hope of this team doing anything in the playoffs, any hope of making it to the Super Bowl, I think they have to be the number 1 seed. Because if they are the 5 seed, I feel like that road is just too tough to hoe. At some point, Philadelphia looks like it's got a lot of stuff figured out compared to last year at this time. Philadelphia, I know there's always something a little bit wonky there. There's always something not quite right with the mix, but they're still a really talented team. They are so well balanced, either on offense or defense. Offensively, they've got a very good quarterback in Jalen Hurts. They can do it through the air. They can do it on the ground. Defensively, they got enough meat and they got enough bully ball up front to where they can knock you on your ass. And then they've got the safeties and they've got the secondary to where they can turn you over and they can cover you downfield. Philadelphia is going to be a very tough out. I do not want to go to Philadelphia and have to play them if that's kind of how the cards fall. That's the one team when I look at everything on paper, I'm like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to go there. So make sure you don't go there. Just win and then win again and then get to the playoffs and let's just go. But I think it's incredibly important for this team to beat the 49ers, and I think it's incredibly important for this team to secure that number 1 overall seed. How vital to their success is that number 1 seed in making the Super Bowl for them in your estimation? Do they have to have it to have a legit shot at winning the Super Bowl?
Huge. Ford Field will be rowdy, and I think it gives you a great opportunity. I think it's fair to say if the 49ers had to come to Ford Field, that might have been a rout. It would have been a party. Mm-hmm. It would have been something where you're not blowing a multiple touchdown lead at home at Ford Field. I think it's huge. I think the momentum would be so you can make an argument that the environment against the Bucs and the Rams was such that it really gave the Lions a boost. And I think that the true all roads lead through Detroit in the postseason, oh my God, dude, it would be great. Especially, like, I don't want to play the Commanders. I don't want to play the Rams. Because the NFC is looking like it's going to be a beast to come out of. And any advantage that you have is going to be tremendous. I would rather have Philly come to Detroit than going to Philadelphia. But here's the thing. I really like looking at it right now. I think that the Eagles, I think in the end, might crack first before a team like the Commanders or the Rams or things like that. The Rams would have confidence playing the Lions because they've done it now twice. I think that the Commanders, with their head coach and their offensive coordinator, can do a lot of things that would give them confidence. So in the end, as many opportunities as you have to play at home is going to be great, because I think more importantly is the opportunity right now, just based on, I think the way it goes, as it stands, as we're talking, and I think it's going to play out, the Lions can only be the number 1 seed or the number 5 seed.
That's it.
That's it. And that number 5 seed, could you imagine a 14-3 5 seed? That's
crazy.
Sick. That has to play on the road. That's disgusting. But I will say this, okay? Could you imagine the DOC in LA? Could you imagine Detroit Sports Podcast with the open phone, just going out there and shooting film and just being like, all right, this ain't so bad. You never know. It could be life-changing. It could be, does Doc go Hollywood? Does Doc say, fuck it, you only live once and move out? No, probably not. The taxes in California are fucking crazy, and everybody's moving out of California. So I don't think that I would get starstruck. But in the end, you never know how life could go. Maybe someone goes, maybe some producer goes, you're the little mini Mediterranean guy I've always been looking for my movie. You never know. Could be having
You're
coffee.
like the Mediterranean Danny DeVito.
Exactly. It could be having coffee, doing the podcast like this, chilling, and someone be like, you're it. Be like, what, you want a bald 45-year-old for your movie? Yes, you're the guy. So you never know. LA.
Next thing you know, you're doing Subway commercials.
Exactly. You never know. You never know what happens. Or I'm hawking toilet paper. You never know what kind of things, that they tell people to lure people into Hollywood. But it's going to be great. I think that more importantly than having a home field, I think that bye week would be huge for this football team. I think that the week off would reset everything. You would have more of a chance to have David Montgomery and Saloni. I think that you would have a mentally refreshed team. You would have a team that would be just primed, like just the rest needed to get out there and whoop ass in that first round of the playoffs. And then you get that confidence in the NFC title game. Just to have 2 games at home to get to the Super Bowl, oh my God, it would be fantastic. That bye week, I think, is the most important thing for this football team. And let's hope it's closer. The odds of the Lions getting the number 1 seed is so close. And I think that they got enough to be able to secure it. But let's see. But maybe there'll be more. Maybe they'll find more avenues against the 49ers to run trick plays. Cause did you get fooled by Ben Johnson? Because when Goff stumbled, that didn't tip off that it was a trick play. What made it a little bit questionable was, wait a minute, Jahmyr Gibbs and Goff falling down, that's not going to happen on the same play. I thought at first, okay, Goff stumbled, it happens. But then when you see Jahmyr Gibbs falls, you're like, oh my God, the Detroit Lions are clowning the Chicago Bears, and they're running fake stumbles to try and score. And then you realize that Ben Johnson is such an OG. He's looking at tape of the Packers in September rolling out and having explosive against the Bears, and he tried to copy it. No less than talking to, and no less willing, he was crazy enough to try and ask Jared Goff, Jared, what do you think? I got this play I see on tape. Do you think you can actually drop the football and pick it back up so that this can look kind of like this? And Jared's looking at him like, hold up, boss. I don't think I want to drop the football in any capacity because I could stumble it. I could get, when these defenders see a football on the ground, they're going to come hunting for me. Like, boss, man, I know you're being cute here, but let's try something different. And he kiboshed the idea of Goff actually putting the football on the ground. But they said, you know what? Let's revise it and let's pretend like we're stumbling. And the whole sideline for the Lions are yelling fumble, and cause it actually worked. What an unbelievable play. How crazy is that play? Stumble bum, in my opinion, probably the best trick play run in the last 2-3 years by any NFL team.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to watch. And like you said, so like Goff going backwards and kind of maybe slipping a little bit, not out of the ordinary. You see this all the time. You can turn on just about any Sunday and check out any game, and you'll see a quarterback possibly slip as the handoff exchange is being done with the center and the quarterback. That's not unusual. Jahmyr Gibbs looking like he's on ice skates on the grass. That was kind of what tipped you off a little bit. And then the thing is, the play worked out masterfully. Like, Sam Laporta was wide open. So it was a beautiful play, and it's just, this goes to show you the creativity that this offense has. And it goes to show you how well-oiled a machine this team is, especially in that offensive room, where you're able to go get a piece of game film, watch it, study it, and you're just like, I think we can do something here. And then you'll have your OC present this to your quarterback. And a lot of times, Jared Goff's been on the record saying, look, I have ideas too, and I present them as well. And they kind of go back and forth, and they kind of fine-tune these things. It's very much kind of like what we do with the podcast, right? We'll go back and forth a little bit. We'll fine-tune stuff. And you start to kind of break things down to this more micro formula of like what has to be successful to work. And that's what they do. I think it's incredible to watch what Ben Johnson is doing as an offensive coordinator and as a play caller. And I think the thing that's awesome about it is he has his quarterback. Like, Jared Goff is the perfect guy to execute everything he wants to do. And it's absolutely fantastic to watch these two guys go. You know, everybody talked about Belichick and Brady, right? And how, like, they were basically a match made for each other. Legit, Jared Goff and Ben Johnson, they are a match made for each other. They're two peas in the pod. And I think it's fantastic to watch what these guys do. Now, look, all the trick plays are a lot of fun, and it gets a lot of hype, gets a lot of people talking about a lot of different stuff. You got to see this team break out a gaggle of trick plays, and you got to see this team break out a bunch of intricate, fun things when they went and they clowned the Cowboys down in Dallas. They're taking on the 49ers this week, Monday Night Football. They are headed back to the place that was a horror show at the end of last season. The final 30 minutes of the season were absolutely abysmal when they took on the 49ers, and they ended up losing in that NFC championship game, lost the chance to go play in the Super Bowl, lost the chance to really do something that could have been really, really special. Do you think we see more trick plays? Do you expect something like that revenge game that we saw against the Cowboys, or is this more a buttoned-up business approach for the Lions?
Yeah, I expect it all. I expect the first meeting on Thursday, Dan Campbell is just going to play highlights. He doesn't have to say much. You just play highlights of the NFC Championship game, and you realize you let him go. And I think this football team is going to whoop the 49ers' ass. It's going to be probably a 2-touchdown win. I think that you pull out all the stops. This time it might be a handoff to Penei Sewell. This one's got to be for Penei Sewell.
Handoff to Penei Sewell.
This has got to be rumble, stumble, Penei Sewell, handoff. You do it all. And I'm talking about you're up 3 touchdowns, and you just start handing it off to the linemen. You have fun with it. I think that you need to exercise the pain that occurred from the NFC Championship game, because it's painful. It's the sight of knowing that potentially, and that's what hurts with all the injury this year. And I just wish maybe Dan Campbell wouldn't have said publicly, I think, man, you got to hurt because it could be the last time we're here. Because that really resonates that the Lions, had they beat the 49ers, they had a good chance to beat the Chiefs. They had a real good chance. And they could be the defending Super Bowl champ. We could be talking about a team fighting for their second Super Bowl. So it's tough to relive that, but you never know. Maybe you say that the Lions aren't 13-2 right now if they didn't have the scar of getting close to their dream. But in the end, I look at it like right now, this football team knows what they need, and they have their goal right in sight. And I think that the offense gives them the best chance to meet their goal. I think that they win out. I think they end up this year 15-2 and number 1 seed with the best chance possible of getting to the Super Bowl. Now, winning it is something that I don't think that my brain will let me, even, I don't know, when the time comes, if I have to put pen to paper or speak my words, could I say publicly that the Lions will win the Super Bowl with 20 guys on IR? It sounds crazy, but it's going to depend on the matchup. But Lamar's looking good. The Chiefs are freaking crazy. And you got Mahomes running into the end zone with a quote unquote high ankle sprain. Okay. And then you got the Bills that are looking to unleash. But it has the feel that depending on who's available for the Lions, it'll be a good game. It'll be competitive. So the Lions will be a tough out, because I just think that if you ask me what 1 or 2 things they got to improve, I just look at it like the pass rush. You got to find any avenue to generate something. Zadarius Smith's PFF grade was horrible. The pass rush wasn't there. And in the end, here's what's scary, is that Caleb Williams was able to evade your defenders. He was able to scoot free. Now, what makes it fun is that your offense gives you a 2-touchdown lead. You can have that happen. You can have explosive plays when you're up by, when you're up by 10 to 15 points. You can kind of, every defensive mishap is not as terrible. But in the playoffs, it can be different because you got to remember the Lions were relatively healthy going into the playoffs last year, and the games against the Buccaneers and the Rams were heartstoppers. What do you think they need to do to be able to? What area do you think they got to improve the most so that they can win out? Because I just think that the 49ers game is going to be, when you have revenge on the mind, the Lions are going to be locked in. I don't see mistakes or unclean football. I think that they're going to go in there so motivated on Monday Night Football to party it up and embarrass the 49ers. But I do think that the pass rush, you got to find avenues with Zadarius Smith and DJ Reader. And I know, you got a bunch of patchwork linebackers, but you got to find, like, Levi and Josh got to continue to step it up. Josh Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike got to find avenues to potentially get the job done.
I think you're right. I think it's the pass rush that has to be improved. It's the one thing that you've been missing all season long, like since Aiden Hutchinson's gone down. And even then, if you go back to the beginning of the year, you rewind the tape for what we were talking about. We talked about you got to develop somebody on the opposite side of Hutch so they can get to the quarterback and apply some pressure. Look, Zadarius Smith, we were hyped when he was brought here. I don't think it's necessarily translated to what we were really hoping for. Like, he's giving you some QB pressures, but he's just not getting home at the rate that you were hoping he was. And they really haven't been able to find anybody else. And then you lose Aleem McNeil, who, as much of a run stuffer as he is, he's a guy who really helps collapse that pocket around a quarterback and apply that pressure from the front. So you're down two monster pieces in a guy like Hutch and McNeil, and you just don't have the guys on the roster right now to be able to get to the quarterback. I don't know. John Kaminsky's not coming back before the playoffs, is he? He's not. He doesn't have the ability to come back because that was a guy who he was very underrated, right? And he didn't do a whole lot of things exceptionally well, but he was a good player. And he was a guy who had the ability to get to the quarterback. So you would love for him to come back. You could put him on the opposite side of Zadarius Smith, and he's a guy who's got a motor that runs all the time, similar to Hutch. He's just not as physically gifted as Hutchinson was. So I think figuring out a way to either keep that pocket constricting around the quarterbacks or getting guys free on the edges, even if you've got to bring linebackers up and you've got to play them as an extra edge rusher, you got to figure out a way to manufacture quarterback pressures and hits and get some sacks. Because if you can get the quarterback's head on a clock and get their mind thinking like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, I got to get the ball out. If you can get them like that, you force more turnovers, and you see what the turnovers do. You look at the game that happened on Sunday against the Bears, right? Turnovers were key. They got turnovers early in that game, and that really helped set the tone. Those turnovers become extra possessions for your offense. You have a very good offense who can take advantage of them and put points on the board. So you need to figure out a way to get the quarterback with some happy feet, get them moving around a little bit, and help the quarterback turn the ball over so you guys can get the extra possessions and put points on the board, which then allows your defense to play a little bit different. You don't have to play as tight. You could maybe take some of those weird chances that Terrion Arnold likes to take, and if he gets beat, he gets beat. If he's able to turn it into a pick, he turns it into a pick. But it allows you to play a little bit freer, and it allows the playbook of Aaron Glenn to open up when you're able to play from in front. It's harder to play when you're playing from behind. You've seen that with the Bills game. So, I agree with you. I think you got to get pressure on the quarterback. I think that translates to wins. I think they're going to work on a couple of things against San Francisco. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen this defensive front dial up a few more QB pressures and maybe end up with a sack or two. In the end, I think the Lions end up winning this game. I think San Francisco is incredibly beat up as well. Not as beat up as the Lions. I think they are incredibly beat up, though, and I just don't think they have the depth that the Detroit Lions have. And because of that, I think the Lions end up coming away with a 10-point win. I'm going to say something along the lines of 34-24. Nice. I think offensively, San Francisco's got some guys who can still pop, right? Like Deebo Samuel can still go. It seems like they can plug in any guy they get off the street to play running back, and they get production out of them. Maybe not to the levels of CMC, but you're still getting guys who are able to help move the football down the field and score points. You also have got one of the best tight ends, and he's having a great year in George Kittle. So you've got offensive weapons that are going to be difficult for this defense to try to take out of the game. But I think defensively, they're just a little bit too beat up, and it sounds like internally they've got a couple of issues. You go back to, I think 2 weeks ago, you had a linebacker who would not go back into the game because he got slid down the roster to the second spot because Dre Greenlaw came back. So you've got things going on there. It's not all sunshine and rainbows over there in San Francisco. So I think Lions take advantage, they capitalize, and I think they end up stretching this incredible record that they have right now to 14-2, and then it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Minnesota game.
Yeah, cheer hard for the Packers. I think it got flexed as we were recording. The Packers game against the Vikings is now Sunday at 4:25, so you got to wait a little bit to watch it. But in the end, by Sunday evening, Lions fans will know exactly what's needed to secure the number 1 seed, and we'll see what ends up happening. But it was a good week for the Lions. I think that anytime that you can embarrass the Bears and really send them packing, it's going to be interesting to see, did the Bears showcase enough for Ben Johnson to want to go there? I hope not, but that'll be conversations that we'll start to have as the postseason kind of rolls on. You're already starting to hear whispers that the Bears are very interested. I'm curious what Ben Johnson would want. Would he want control? Would he go to the Bears? Would he stay in the division to take a job, his first opportunity as a head coach? How much money would he get? But that's something to pay attention to. Ben Johnson is going to be coveted, and I think Aaron Glenn is as well. So enjoy the Lions games because you never know how long this coaching staff is actually going to stay together. But this holiday edition, we're going to keep it a little shorter, let everybody enjoy the holidays with their family. Get out there, return your items if you didn't like it, return those crusty socks that your grandma gave you. But thanks, everybody, for your continued support of our podcast. It means a lot. Adam and I have been podcasting for 11 years, and to see where it came, I thought that, podcasting would be a medium that a lot of people would gravitate towards. And my goodness, you can argue that podcasts change the world in a lot of different ways. And it's just great to be part of the scene. And thank you guys for letting us be part of a small part of the Detroit sports scene. It's been fun, and it's been very rewarding to be able to come on here and fire it up, talk about sports, feel better when the teams stink and you got to let our thoughts out. But knowing that the Detroit Lions have a chance, that's all you can do is get in the dance, and let's see what happens. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. If you like what you heard, you don't like what you heard, always remember that you have an open platform, open invitation to tweet us, and we'll have some fun conversations. I can't wait to fire it up in the new year. We're going to fire it up, I think. So let's see, the 26th. Yeah, this is the final episode of 2024. The next time that you hear us, it'll be 2025, and we'll be prepping for the Vikings game. So make sure you stay locked in. Subscribe to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All we can promise is 2 guys shooting the shit, talking about Detroit sports, uncensored, unfiltered, doing whatever we want, and dedicated to Detroit sports. Can't wait, cuz. Happy New Year. Ho, 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 motherfucker. Can't wait to talk to you in 2025.